to introduce the great Carl Borack, we have the great Stacy Johnson.
Good evening, everybody. It's really great to see so many of Carl Borack's family and friends. And it's really a personal honor for me to be able to introduce Carl tonight for his induction into the U.S. Fencing Hall of Fame. It's an honor that I believe is long overdue, particularly for one of the most passionate athletes, administrators, and supporters of the sport of fencing, not only in the U.S., but worldwide. When I was preparing to write this introduction, I started in February, and I was gathering information, and I was like thinking about this, and I reflected on my own personal friendship and thoughts about Carl and what he's meant to me, and to so many other athletes, and to the sport of fencing over these many years. And two ideas kept coming to me. The first idea is that Carl is a person who makes a difference. He makes a difference wherever he goes and whatever he does. He is truly a change agent, a game changer. And I'll speak more about this in just a little bit. The other idea that kept coming to me is that one of his most significant contributions as team captain, as vice president of U.S. Fencing, and as a well-respected leader in the FIE, our international body, is Carl really helped forge and create an athlete-centered culture in U.S. Fencing. And so what do I mean by athlete-centered culture? Carl Borack really wanted to see that U.S. Fencing, and particularly the elite athlete competitive side, had an organization that identified and supported the needs of athletes. He wanted the organization to try to understand the athlete's world through the athlete's lens. Carl had the audacity to suggest that we should ask athletes what they thought was good for them, what was good for their preparation and training, rather than the organization paternalistically determining what is best for athletes. This was a radical idea, I can assure you, at the time. So first, I want to go back to what I said earlier, that Carl is a person who makes a difference, that he's a game changer. And to do this, let me give you a bit of grounding in his own accomplishments, in his own athletic achievements. Because it's really out of this grounding of being an elite athlete himself that he accomplishes making a difference in creating a culture of athlete-centeredness. I won't repeat all of the information that you can see in the Hall of Fame, but there's a few results that are very important and critical. He made his first Pan Am team in Winnipeg at the tender age of 19, where he won a gold medal in team epic. He also won a second gold medal in foil, beating the mighty Cubans. And I think, as many of you will remember, the Cubans were tough. 2 years later, he won the national championships in foil, and then traveled just 3 weeks later to the Maccabean Games, where he won gold medals in individual saber and F-18, and then won bronze in foil and saber team events. In 1971, he made the finals of the national championships in Berkeley in all 3 weapons. I don't believe that's ever been done again. Carl was accomplishing all these results as a West Coast fencer at a time of East Coast dominancy in all the weapons. He made numerous junior world, senior world teams. He competed in the world championships in Moscow in '66, Montreal '67, Havana, Cuba '69. Carl made the Olympic team in Munich in 1972, where he was elected captain of the men's foil team. Carl was a game changer as an athlete, a renegade from that crazy West Coast who could do it all in all 3 weapons. I mean, really, Carl? All 3 weapons? It's amazing to me, and it shows great agility in the mind and body to be able to do that. In 1972, I met Carl for the first time. I was 16 years old, was attending my first national championships in Waltham, Massachusetts. Carl came into the room with my future coach, Mike Massaro. I had never seen two men with more charisma and dark curly hair in all my life. And I said, I think I'm going to like this sport. As Gay, Vinny, Izza, and I became a team at San Jose State in those early years, and particularly during our collegiate years, Carl would come to some of the tournaments to support and cheer us on. Now, as some of you know, as genius as a coach that Mike Massaro was, he was not really good at the side of the strip. And we didn't like him at the side of the strip, but we liked Carl at the side of the strip. He was very positive. And we spoke to him and we told him, you know, you really need to consider becoming a team captain. We need somebody like you. We needed his positivity, his great eye for what was happening on the strip, and we needed a strong presence to fight for us internationally. Carl, however, was busy, incredibly busy and successful and immersed in his film career. He didn't have much time because he owned his own commercial production company where he designed, produced, and directed a string of award-winning films and commercials for corporations such as Mobil, Avon, and Hoffman LaRouche. He later transitioned to film and TV and produced movies like The Big Fix and Key Tortuga, an action-adventure television program for CBS. He also was working on stage with John Voight, the basic training of Pablo Hummer. Carl later produced a trio of critically acclaimed family films based on the Newbery Award-winning novel by Phyllis Naylor on Shiloh. The man was always busy. He was using his enormous creativity, his sense of planning, his sense of vision as he worked in this very creative industry. Running all these films and marketing initiatives, which, by the way, served as a marketing consultant for the Los Angeles Rams football team as well. Well, the DeSaro ladies just thought that all this film and marketing work would provide great training to serve as team captain for us. So we persisted, and we kept after Carl until he finally accepted. And once we got him back to fencing, he stayed with U.S. athletes and did his best to balance his film and sporting career. So Carl served on countless junior and senior world championships as team captain. I don't know how many, literally. But I can tell you that he served as team captain for the World University Games in '85 and 3 Pan American Games teams, '87, '91, '98, and as team captain for 4 Olympic teams, '88, '92, '96, 2000. Now that is an amazing and strong testament to the strength of his role as team captain. I want to tell you, as an athlete who was captained by Carl, he was the captain that really stood up for us against international powers. Carl would rail against anyone who wasn't treating us fairly, and he would raise a ruckus with anyone and everyone within the FIE to get fairness and equity for the U.S. And the FIE would listen. Carl is tough, and he wouldn't stand for unfair treatment. And conversely, Carl was tough in other ways too. He indeed was there to see U.S. athletes win. No excuses. For me personally, I know others feel the same way. We knew we had someone who would fight for us. I mean, really fight for us, and he did. Carl not only fought for us while we were on the strip, he raised thousands and thousands of dollars for U.S. teams, helped countless individual athletes with money, meals for trips, airfares, hotels when needed. He was incredibly generous to so many. But more than his leadership and his financial support for so many years, Carl changed things. I remember in 1975, we had a point system that really did not allow young fencers who were getting hot in the last year of the quad to make the team because it was a cumulative point system. I had very good results in the last years, but didn't make the 76 team, and I was heartbroken. Carl Borack looked me squarely in the eyes and said, "You will be on the next Olympic team." No one had said that to me. No one had such a clear and unequivocal vision for what was possible. And his belief made all the difference in the world to me. Thank you, Carl. He helped me to travel to Montreal to train with the team and with my teammate, Gay McClellan. And I got to see what it was like to be at an Olympics. That's just a sample. He's done this for others. Remember the time that you raised $36,000 for a training camp to be hosted prior to the 1996 Olympic team, where Olympic team members and key juniors came together to prepare? He was always looking down the road at the next generation and trying to help. Now, you remember earlier that I spoke about Carl creating a culture of athlete-centeredness. From 1984 to 88, Louis Siegel and Carl Borack ran as an officer team and were elected president and vice president, respectively. It was during this time that there was this real shift in how athletes were viewed and treated in the U.S. The organization became much more focused on hearing from the athletes in terms of what they needed, but not only that, how to better support coaches. Carl has tried for years to explore, plan, and execute those things that can make a difference to athlete performance and longevity in the sport. He advocated for ongoing development of cadre members and mentored his own successor, Jeff Buchanan, who is here tonight and who has captained Pan Am Olympic teams of his own. Carl wrote the very first grant for national coach, receiving $50,000 from the Olympic Committee for his endeavor, which brought a focus on bringing more power and authority to coaches. He has worked to ensure personal coaches are present at World Championships and at Olympic Games. Carl Borack's work on the International Committee is legend. 20 years, I think. In terms of organizational leadership, Carl served on the U.S. Olympic Committee's Public Relations Commission, and in 1996 he was elected to the FIA Publicity and Promotion Commission and was re-elected 2000 and 2004 quadrennials, becoming the president of that commission. Now, I want you to pause just for a second with me and to take it all in, because it's a bit overwhelming, but I'm going to ask for some help in this room. I would like to ask all of the athletes and fencers in this room who have ever been captained by Carl Borack to please stand. Please stay standing. I would like anyone who served with him during his administration on a committee and/or in the FIE working alongside of him to please stand. Thank you. Now you can begin to see the impact and the reach he has had in this organization over the years. So how does Carl Borack make a difference? He does it through love, passion, friendship, and endless generosity. Carl lives, eats, and breathes fencing. His passion for fencing is deeper than anyone I know. And Carl also has a secret weapon. It is Gayleen, his wife. She is a powerful and generous spirit that I have come to know over these many years and has helped many of us. Over this last year or so, Carl, you have had an incredible battle fighting cancer in your life. As in the rest of your life and your many accomplishments, you did not shy or turn away from the battle. You have used your warrior spirit and fought it head on, using all your Olympian understanding and then sharing this fight with your friends, allowing us to help and to be supportive as you have helped us. There are so many people from all parts of the U.S. who have come here to celebrate you, to celebrate your Olympic spirit, your incredible successes, your amazing journey in fencing. Congratulations, Carl. Thank you for making a difference in so many lives, for being a game changer, for changing our culture, for the love of athletes. We love you right back.
Thank you, Stacy. That was a wonderful introduction. As Stacy said, I met her in 1972. This energetic, adorable Texas teen. Little did I know how much of an impact she would have on my life. She not only recognized my talents as a team captain and encouraged me in that role, she also recruited me to run for office and become an advocate for the athletes and a voice at the time of sorely needed. Then, over the years, as we both evolved into our leadership roles, we served together in a lot of capacities. When she was president of the association, it was my pleasure to serve as one of her lieutenants in a battle to get women's saber into the Olympic Games. That single move was one of the most important events in U.S. fencing history, as the U.S. women have dominated the weapon and delivered Olympic and World Championship medals. The Olympic medals not only elevated our status in the eyes of the USOC, but the positive NBC ratings and audience size that witnessed Mario Zagunis and Sadie Jacobson win medals in Athens protected our sport at the IOC. I am very proud to have been a part of that battle, and believe me, it was a battle. We had to win the displeasure of the elite fencing countries of Russia, France, Germany, Italy, and Hungary, to name a few. Stacy has been one of my best friends for years and someone I truly love and admire, and someone who has done enormous things for our sport. I'm proud to be her friend. I'm very proud to have her introduce me. Now, it's hard for me to talk, as Stacy said, that I've encountered battled cancer over the last 15 months. So, I've asked a friend of mine to read what I wanted to say to this group. I think it's better at public speaking anyway than I am, so Mr. Dreyfus, would you please read my speech for me?
Carl wouldn't cry. I will. The words I'm about to speak are written by Carl and about Carl, so I'm not changing anything. I will say that we've been friends since we were 12. He's told me since I was 12 that I should have been a fencer. He was right. And I have nothing to say except, you're right and I'm sorry. I will say one thing. I've never known an art form to be born in my lifetime until I met Carl. And realized that he had invented friendship as an art form. And there's no one sitting here who doesn't know him, who doesn't know what I'm talking about. He's made me a better person, and he has been my hero for our lives. I was introduced to fencing when I was 9 years old, and it was an instant love affair, and the passion still exists today, and perhaps even more. My first introduction to fencing was with Mel North. Mel had a great way to excite and teach young people, and I was soon taking his fencing class once a week, and at his private club on Saturdays. He had the ability to make you believe that you were going to be a great fencer, and he was a terrific teacher. At that time, I only got to take fencing for a year, and then I moved to a new area and a new school, and other things took priority. However, 5 years later, a classmate by the name of Bobby Post, who turned out to be the smartest guy in the class and is currently a constitutional law scholar at Yale University, asked me if I wanted to go back to fencing. At the time, I was playing high school football, but I flew at the opportunity to start fencing again. And started my competitive, once again, Mel was my coach, and I joined his club, Salle du Nord, and started my competitive journey continually through the 1972 Olympic Games, and more sparsely over the years that followed, as my focus moved to my professional life. Mel North was also the varsity coach at UCLA, and the head of the UCLA fencing club as well, many of whom came to his private club to work out. And I benefited as I got to go to UCLA and work out with his team and the club participants. It helped my game grow quickly. In 1965, I went to Rotterdam, Holland for the Junior World Championships, my first trip abroad, and my first introduction to world-class fencing. A whole new world opened my eyes, and the level of playing the sport the way one would aspire to. At the time, I had become enamored with the Olympics, first because of a film I saw about Bob Mathias and his gold medal Olympic performance in decathlon. And then I watched Rayford Johnson and C.K. Yang compete for decathlon fame as well. So with the passion for the Olympic Games and the newfound excitement in international competition, my goals were set. I am forever grateful to my parents for financing that first junior world trip, which was the fuel that ignited my path. At the risk of sounding immodest, I think that Mel gave me one of the best hands in the country and one of the best coupees as well. For a while, Joe Elliott was my teammate, and I watched him become a very good fencer, and he was a terrific role model. And it was a great inspirational boost to see him win the national championships in 1965 in épée. He set the bar and showed it could be done. Over the years, I enjoyed competing against him as well. Given the fact that we both competed in foil and épée, we found ourselves fencing against each other often, and he was one of the best we had competing at that time in the United States. My passion showed no bias toward any of the weapons. I loved fencing in each discipline. They were different, yet they were the same. However, probably 70 to 80% of my focus in my lesson training was the foil, with saber and épée occurring when there was an upcoming tournament. At the club, however, how I practiced and bouted was spread more evenly across the weapons, more like 50% foil and the split between saber and épée. There were numerous occasions where I would go into a weekend in fencing in 3 individual events and 3 team events. Good practice for when I would enter the national championships and compete in multiple events. I trained hard, fenced hard, and loved every minute of it. However, with that said, being a West Coast fencer in the world of an East Coast elite dominance in the non-electric saber era, with the referee and judges deciding your fate, gravitated me towards concentrating more on the 2 electric weapons. At least in foil, you can make 1 lighter touches. Épée, of course, there is very little subjectivity involved. So for me, I fenced saber for fun, and because it was the most dramatic of the weapons, and it appealed to my creative flair. Though I honestly tried to bring color to every bout I ever fenced. I liked elegant yet competitive fencing, and I tried to be one whenever I competed. And speaking of elegant, I must also mention the time I trained with Haizaburo Okawa, a wonderful fencer and fencing master who was beautiful to watch and compete against, and a great joy to take lessons from. He is one of the true class acts of our sport. I want you to know that I could go to a tournament, an event, and I could spot Carl even though everyone was wearing the same uniform and hidden behind the same masks, because he was the one who never retreated. And you could stand, and sooner or later, very quickly, you could say, "There's Carl." And that was Carl. I want to congratulate my fellow nominees on their introduction this evening. I didn't know anything about Henry Uitenhoven, but all the other inductees I'm quite familiar with and proud to be in their company. As a kid growing up in Los Angeles, Skip, we knew him as Sewell, Shirts, was a legend, and his achievements were a role model. Southern California had not put many male members on the Olympic team, with Skip being a rare exception. As a competitor, I had to fence Ed Ballinger in foil, but thankfully, not often. He was a terrific fencer. In saber, I had to fence Al Morales, who was one of the best athletes to grace our sport. When Al moved to LA for a short period of time, I would open my fencing club and we would work out together in saber and in épée. Al had honed his skills in épée as a pentathlete, and as you've learned, was one of the premier saber fencers of his generation. Training with Al was a humbling experience. He was a superb fencer, smart, athletic, and confident. I really enjoyed those training sessions. I always loved fencing good fencers. It's what the sport is all about, and what makes it so much fun to do. I must say, in retrospect, that even in competition, I much preferred to compete against the best. It is always more gratifying to practice your craft at a higher level. As team captain and or chief of mission, I have spent much time with Sharon Montplaisir and Felicia Zimmerman, both outstanding women and gifted fencers. I have traveled much of the world with them, witnessed countless hours on and off the fencing strip, and I am proud to have been able to serve on teams with them and be inducted at the same time. In my leadership roles, I have witnessed some of the most momentous occasions in U.S. fencing and watched the growth of U.S. fencing into an elite fencing nation. I've had the pleasure of working with some wonderful athletes, coaches, and cadre. There are a lot of good people in our sport, and I have enjoyed being with all of them. The list is too long to name everyone. However, I would like to single out one person with whom I served on a number of teams, and that is the late Sherry Postumus, also a Hall of Fame member. Sherry was a gift to our teams, and certainly to me. We served together on 3 Olympic teams, 3 Pan Am teams, and numerous junior and senior world championship teams. And she was an amazing team manager that everyone loved, including me. She was a great counterpoint to my energy and personality. Our sport sorely misses her perspective and persona. She was loved and respected. As I said, I love fencing, and I love the Olympic Games. So you can well imagine how tragic it was to be in Munich and witness the whole terrorist event. The horror of it and the manner in which Avery Brundage handled the whole affair and the way it was portrayed by much of the press still angers me to this day. It was treated as a political event as opposed to what it really was, a terrorist act, pure and simple. I firmly believe that if it had been treated as a terrorist incident back then, the geopolitical dynamics of that region might be very different today. Nonetheless, my passion for the Olympic Games has gone unabated. I have attended every Summer Games since 1972, with the exception, of course, of Moscow in 1980. I have proudly marched in 5 Olympic opening ceremonies as an athlete and team captain. And I will tell you that at one point in the last 2 or 3 years, Carl called me and said that he had entered the Olympic site, and when they saw the American flag, they booed, and his heart broke, and he wept as he walked around. I'll never forget that. I will be attending London this summer and witnessing all the fencing events. This being Olympic time, I want to acknowledge those Olympians in the audience tonight. As the saying goes, once an Olympian, always an Olympian. It's an honor being part of the same alumni with you. We are now in a new era of American success in the international arena. The U.S. has become one of the most elite fencing nations. We have an ever-growing population of good coaches, domestically trained, and from some of the major international fencing nations, all turning out terrific athletes. We have many former Olympians and world team members who have joined the coaching ranks. The sport is growing, and so too does the talent pool. Just look at what is going on over the next week at the convention center. 7,000 competitors and 430 plus teams. Wow. That is really time now for U.S. fencing to take its place next to the other major governing bodies. 6 medals in the last Olympic Games, numerous accolades, including most recently the #1 FA team in the world, the #1. The #1 women's saber fencer in the world. And a stellar level of accomplishments in the cadet and junior levels. U.S. fencing deserves its time in the sun. So, for our new president, Donald Anthony, I truly hope that you can harness our assets and bring a professional approach to the elevating of U.S. fencing. While you inherit a troubled balance sheet, you do have a clean slate to take up the level on which the organization presents itself and attracts sponsors and talent and donors. I urge you too to dip into the talent pool of parents and competitors and seek those that can open doors if indeed they don't control those doors themselves. I know there are a lot of very talented people that are willing to lend their experience, their expertise to this cause. I wish you a lot of luck in your presidency. Eternally grateful to Mel North for the passion he instilled in me for the sport and for his guiding me to excellence. I am blessed that my parents supported me and made it possible. I have made many friends from around the world, and he ain't kidding, and lived many exciting experiences as an athlete, a team leader, and a representative in the international federation I truly cherish. I want to thank my friends and family for joining me here this evening. And I am so grateful to those who flew in for this occasion, making this an extra special event for me. Thanks to the Hall of Fame committee for their efforts. Andy Shaw has a large part of my fencing photo archives at the museum, and I greatly appreciate the work he does. My last and most important thank you is to my wife, Kaylee. Who has always encouraged my involvement in spite of the fact that on many occasions it meant a lot of time away from home. Actually, she probably enjoyed those respites from me. That aside, she has been an ally and positive force to my life in fencing, and over the last 2 years, as we all know, she has become a saint. And thank you all for being here.